Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and today we are here with a long-awaited Jujutsu Kaisen video, because it's about time that we talk about Maki and, well, just holy crap, Maki, because Incredible developments are happening within the Jujutsu Kaisen manga, and speaking of, we have some very good news, because the series will be taken off hiatus incredibly shortly, so make sure to subscribe to the New World Review for a consistent injection of cursed culture administered directly into your YouTube feed, because I could not be more hyped to dive back into this particular series. Jujutsu Kaisen has pretty consistently blown me away, and the most recent chapters only emphasize that. In fact, they may very well be some of the best I've read, despite their various production issues, but we will get to that, because we have now just embarked on something of a mini-arc focusing solely on a secondary character who has now managed to change the course of quite literally the entire series. Maki is, honestly, she was never any particular highlight of Jujutsu Kaisen for me. I mean, I liked her and, well, she was there, and that's about it. Which isn't to say that she was poorly written or used or anything. I just think that the standard for captivating characters in Jujutsu Kaisen is so astonishingly high that she never quite met that for me. Never quite, until now that is, because that has all changed. And I should say the same for Mai as well. I never really cared for Mai, and now whenever I think about her, my heart, well, it just breaks, thanks to a couple of drawings scattered across various pieces of paper, known as manga. Because manga can be a very powerful thing like that. So let's talk about these stunning developments. The premise of this arc is innocent enough. Maki returns to the Zenin clan facility, and then proceeds to brutally slaughter everyone and everything in sight, in a methodology that I'm going to describe as very similar to Kill Bill Volume 1. And it's all just so gruesomely satisfying to watch, because the Zenin clan really have been built up as a pack of pretty blatant antagonists over the course of Jujutsu Kaisen, with some rebels here and there like Maki, Mai, and Megumi. They all start with M actually. That's a thing I've not noticed until now. But this arc is the moment where we see how truly dark this organization actually is, with Ogi Zenin sheer disappointment in his own children, culminating in deciding to just rid the world of both of them. And I will say that if I did have one criticism of this mini-arc, it's that Ogi does the very stereotypical classic villain thing of leaving his victims alone and just assuming that they will die, instead of taking the opportunity to just kill Maki and Mai himself. It was a stupid move, but then again, Ogi is a character blinded by his own arrogance, so stupidity does make sense. But this leads us into the tragic yet beautiful moment where Mai ultimately sacrifices herself for Maki, and some very interesting lore that cursed energy essentially treats the concept of twins as one individual. And so neither Maki nor Mai are technically a complete person on their own in that regard, hence why Mai gets a curse technique and Maki is saddled with her heavenly restriction. And in a rather touching moment on the verge of death, Maki and Mai become complete, resulting in the birth of one of the most terrifying characters that Jujutsu Kaisen has seen since Toji Fushiguro. And I love this new Maki. I know she's technically on our side, but what follows is pretty undeniably in the darker segment of the good to evil spectrum, but I loved every second of it. Probably my favorite encounter was Maki's first victim being her father Ogi. There's this stunning kind of overblown full-page panel of Ogi preparing his ultimate serious business jujutsu thing, and Akutami takes this opportunity to emphasize the detail of his cursed energy as well as the raw emotional release of Ogi in this moment. But then we immediately cut to Maki's attack, and in contrast to Ogi's fiery, detailed, gigantic emotional release, Maki's attack is just a simple, casual swing of a sword. It's very purposely undramatic in nature, which is interesting because you would think that this moment of Maki finally being able to take revenge is a pretty big deal. But instead, Maki is actually treating this more like a pest exterminator would. She's on the job, and she's going to get it done quickly and efficiently. Like, this is just another mundane day at work. But as for what Maki has become, let's dwell on this for a bit, because I don't think it's properly understood by a lot of people, perhaps even admittedly myself, but well, we'll see. So I got a lot of comments on my recent Special Grade Sorcerers video saying stuff like, "Oh, where's Maki?" And the reason why I didn't include her as a potential special grade is because I'm not sure if she can actually be considered a sorcerer at this point. Originally, Maki did possess very low levels of cursed energy, not enough to be applied to any sort of decent use, but the trade-off for that was her heavenly restriction, which made her a physical beast. I don't know why I separated the B from the east in that word, but it happened and I'm not re-recording it. So if I understand this correctly, with Mai and Maki being treated as one by the general principles of cursed energy, the fact that Mai does possess a decent quantity of cursed energy actively hindered Maki's heavenly restriction, because in Jujutsu Kaisen, much like real life, you only get what you pay for. So a character like Toji Fushiguro paid the full price of having zero cursed energy, and so he got the full product of superhuman abilities. Meanwhile, Maki and Mai combined paid half price, and so Maki was given a significantly less powerful heavenly restriction. However, in these recent chapters, Mai did identify this, and so she removed her cursed energy from existence via the act of death. Or I guess not removed from existence, because she did end up crafting the cursed tool. But now that the twins have paid that full price of cursed energy, Maki is able to receive the full benefits of her heavenly restriction, which has essentially turned her into what Toji was. There's even a very direct comparison of the two of them, both literally and artistically. And as part of this, I believe that what little cursed energy Maki did possess has also been extinguished, and that is very integral to this perfect Toji effect. Essentially, the most recent Jujutsu Kaisen chapters have given birth to an existence that could very much rival Toji, if not surpass him, and even surpass some of the greatest Jujutsu sorcerers in this series. Maki, like I said, is now an absolute beast, and I would genuinely fear for anyone who has to go up against her. And I think it's even more insane that Akutami was able to pull this off so successfully. Like I said, Maki to me, yeah, look, she was fine, but she was never the reason why I read or watched Jujutsu Kaisen. However, these handful of chapters feature her as the primary protagonist of this mini-arc, and Maki is shockingly captivating in that role. In a different world, she could very much shoulder her own entire manga series, much like many of the Jujutsu Kaisen characters could. I mean, for example, I could easily see Gojo running his own series, or Megumi, or Yuta. Well, I guess Yuta actually did have his own series, but you get the point. And that's very much one of the phenomenal core strengths of Jujutsu Kaisen, because Akutami is able to make every character feel like the main character of their own story within this one greater story. It's genuinely impressive. And this also doesn't come without an unexpected twisty, because probably my favorite part of this entire Maki section is the brief focus on her mother, and it's very, very brief. So Akutami very sneakily leads us to believe that the mother, I keep saying the mother, does the mother have a name? All right, so I just looked it up, and the mother does not have a name. She is just unnamed woman. So well, that's interesting. But in any case, we are led to believe that unnamed mother shares the philosophy of Ogi with the whole, for once, make me glad that I gave birth to you line. But then we discover at the end, right after Maki slices her unnamed mother's throat open, that unnamed mother really was proud of her daughters all along, and even contributes to the Zenin slaughter by ensuring the death of Naoya. So that was another painful twist, the idea that Maki will never actually know how much her own mother loved both her and Mai. And come to think of it, maybe that's why she remains unnamed, because quite frankly, the Zenin name, it's a bit of a stain in Jujutsu Kaisen, because it's often used to denote figures who are quite dickish, to say the least. So perhaps not identifying Maki's mother is a way to keep her sort of narratively separate from this Zenin stain. Or it might also have been done on purpose to show Maki's complete and utter apathy towards her mother, like Akutami saying to us, well, Maki doesn't care about her own mother, so well, why should you? But on the other hand, we are forced to care about her father because he's one of the big core problems, so he gets identified as a nasty, nasty Ogi Zenin and then promptly slaughtered. Going back to Naoya though, having brought him up, this was a big surprise because I really did not expect him to die anywhere near this early. I thought for sure that he was going to be some sort of secondary antagonist during the culling game, but you know, hey, I'll take that subversion of expectations. And it is actually kind of nice to know that going forward, we won't have to deal with him. What I'm very much looking forward to though is hearing Fushiguro's reaction to all of this. The Zenin clan is obviously pretty intrinsically tied to his story, particularly since he is now the head of said clan. And just thinking about that, the head of what exactly, I guess, what, 2 people at this point? But it might be a gigantic weight lifted from his shoulders, knowing that his family roots are quashed and dealt with. In fact, the significance of this handful of chapters really cannot be understated, because Maki went on to kill everyone present at the Zenin estate, but then the epilogue also goes on to confirm that she continued her slaughter fest afterwards. So much so that the Gojo and the Kamo clans even held a meeting to propose removing the Zenin family from the big 3 structure altogether. Like, this is a major power shift, and it will leave a vacuum, one that I'm not sure how it gets filled, or whether or not it even needs filling. Jujutsu Kaisen obviously isn't intended to run for all that much longer in the grand scheme of things, so maybe it's just a matter of time before the Kamo and Gojo clans crumble before our eyes as well. Things are just moving so insanely fast right now in Jujutsu Kaisen that I cannot wait for the next chapter. And yes, we should also discuss the various elephants in our various rooms though, being Akutami's condition. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but it has definitely impacted the series, with chapter 152 notably only containing 9 pages. So about half of the average chapter, but there were also points throughout this mini-arc where Akutami clearly either did not have the time or the physical ability to finish finish a chapter, and so these rough sketches were published instead. Which is always sad to see because an artist of Akutami's caliber really does deserve the full benefit of complete work. However, that's also the nature of the weekly manga publishing grind. For whatever health reason, Akutami clearly fell behind in terms of production, and in the end the decision was made for the manga to go on hiatus, which was definitely for the best, because what we were reading here towards the end was a bit of a sinking ship of time and physical limitations, and Jujutsu Kaisen deserves the full benefit of being read in a more complete format. So I will happily wait however long it takes for Akutami to get back on track, although this hiatus does give me some Hunter x Hunter PTSD, mostly because this is not the first time this has occurred. Back in the Shibuya arc, which I wasn't even reading weekly, there were some clear production issues happening around the climax, because all of a sudden we were interrupted by a couple of filler chapters which were designed to be drawn and produced very easily in lieu of being able to release a proper chapter. So I don't know the full story behind why those came into existence, but it is slightly worrying, so I just hope that Akutami is taking care of themselves and isn't being pushed to the point of self-destruction. But back to the actual material itself, Maki is now a standout character of Jujutsu Kaisen for me. When I think about this series, I see her standing proudly alongside powerhouses like Megumi, Gojo, and Yuta, and it's such a difficult phenomenon to describe, but there's this distinct feeling that Maki has been elevated from supporting character to a legitimate serious protagonist. Someone who I would be more than happy to follow the story of in lieu of, say, Yuji. And given how rapidly everything in Jujutsu Kaisen is changing, I can't wait to see what Akutami does with everyone else as well. Both Panda and Maki have now had some pretty big moments of development, and we have a whole cast remaining who would certainly like some of what they're having. Plus a whole culling game to set up and continue, which I'd completely forgotten about in this whole Zenin business because Maki's arc was already practically a culling game in its own right. Meanwhile, it would be right for you to gain more entertainment by clicking this here next video. There's always more to learn, explore, and experience about this wonderful series, so I look forward to seeing you there.